I am Rachel from 7 and All, and today's video is a very special video because I am bringing my mom back onto the channel for another interview video. This one is going to be specifically about homeschooling a gifted child, and I asked some of you on Instagram and on YouTube about what questions you might have on this kind of more niche side of homeschooling, because not every homeschooler is in this situation, and you guys got back to us with a whole lot of questions. The way we're going to structure this video is, first we're kind of going to talk about like background and overall kind of big picture ideas, and we'll get to more of your specific situational questions toward the end of the video. So if you are looking for kind of a specific answer, definitely stick around to the end. And thank you so much for watching. I'm excited about this conversation. This is a little bit kind of vulnerable for me, for sure, to be talking about. But I thank you for watching, and yeah, let's get started. Okay, now to start off with, I want to say we are sharing about this from lived experience. We are not sharing about gifted education from a scientific-based, study-based, expert-based kind of advice. This is, as always, this is from the personal experience of this homeschool, and the gifted learner we're mostly talking about specifically in this case is me. So I'm interviewing my mom, kind of having walked that whole path of homeschooling a gifted child from day one all the way through high school graduation, seeing how they turn out as an adult, because this is all an experiment, as all parenting is. We have no guarantees. And just as some background, giftedness can come in many different forms. It can look very different. We are specifically talking about academic types of giftedness in this video, and academic giftedness and as it relates to homeschooling specifically. So this is kind of a smaller area within what gifted could mean. And just for background on what that looks like for me personally, it shows itself mainly in very good memory, like a memory that I remember things I probably shouldn't even remember. It can come off as creepy because I'll know a lot of stuff about you if I ever heard it once. And if I see something, hear something, I tend to remember it. It's not perfect memory, but very good. I just learn quickly. I have a lot of confidence with learning. And I like some things that are maybe hard to learn. It might take me a little while to learn it, but I know I could learn it if I wanted to. But if I don't want to, it can be hard to motivate myself to learn it. And probably the third big thing that comes out for me is I'm fantastically good at testing. So like, ask me a question, even if I don't know the answer, I'm going to answer you. Because I'm pretty sure that just through logic and common knowledge, I know the answer to every question. This, I realize, is a bit of a weird trait. I've been like that my whole life. So I'm phenomenally good at standardized testing, college level testing, any kind of test. I just do very well because it all makes sense. Like, I just think I know the answers to everything, and usually I do. So that's our background we're starting with. So if a mom came to you and she thinks she has a gifted child, and she's asking you, how would I homeschool a gifted child? What is the first thing you're going to say?
The first thing I'd ask is questions about the child, because I don't think you should necessarily assume you actually have a gifted child in the terms of academic giftedness, because many children can do things at early ages. A smart and diligent, hardworking child who tries can achieve a lot of academic success very early. So I would say focus on looking for and assessing whether you're actually dealing with a gifted child versus a hardworking, normal, smart child.
And why would you want to make that differentiation, like the separation between gifted education, gifted homeschooling, and just homeschooling a smart and cooperative child?
There's a lot of competitiveness with your gifted child, and if you get into kind of the groupings where you have gifted children and you aren't a gifted child, you could feel very stressed and very overwhelmed. because you can't actually keep up. So I think unnecessarily there's unnecessary pressure, and where a smart child should feel very proud of their achievement, they'll just always feel like they're a little behind and they can't keep up. And it's just because their innate ability just really isn't there.
So, if that differentiation is important, how can you tell whether your child is smart or gifted? And would you say that parents should be seeking out an official diagnosis and evaluation?
Not necessarily. I think it's good to observe your child and really try to figure out what are you dealing with. An official diagnosis, I'm not sure that that's going to...
I think if you're there's a difference versus if you're homeschooling versus in school, right? Like, you might need that official labeling and stuff when you're in a school system to get the kind of education that they need. Versus homeschool, we already have the freedom to adapt to every individual child's needs just based on observation and knowing them.
Mm-hmm.
So in the homeschool context, it's not as important.
It's not as important, but it's important for you to choose your strategy. So how are you going to deal with the child? And if you find yourself that you're kind of pushing the speed at which they're learning, you're dealing with a smart child. If they are pushing the speed at which they learn and you can't keep up, you're dealing with a gifted child.
So that's kind of your overall differentiation, that you can't really push a gifted child for the most.
This might not be helpful, but sometimes people say, how do you know you're in love? And I say, if you ask the question, you're probably not. How do you know you have a gifted child? If you ask that question, if it's a question, because they are, excuse the word, they're so odd in their own little way that it's pretty obvious.
Something stands out.
Something stands out that you're almost a little scared of these children.
Okay, so which would be easier in your opinion, teaching a smart kid or teaching a gifted kid?
Teaching a smart kid is way, way easier. So if you are having enjoyable experience teaching your child, and it's just so pleasant and they're going so fast and so far and very peaceful, not dramatic at all, and it's just a pure joy. That is so fun. Congratulations, you have a very smart and dutiful child.
Probably not.
Probably not dealing with a gifted child.
Congratulations. So for you, what did that look like, or how did you first kind of come to realize you were dealing with something not within this more normal range?
So Rachel is the firstborn, so I didn't have any experience teaching children before her. And when she was 3 years old, that's when we started our homeschooling adventure. And I had bought in some curriculum that was unit study-like. And it was about days of the week, and then you'd have another unit on months of the year, or another unit on the seasons, or another, it was different units. The different units took maybe 2 weeks or 4 weeks of activities to learn a certain set of things you were supposed to know at the end of the unit. I sat down with her, very happy. We were going to learn the days of the week. And I told her that. Okay, Rachel, we're going to learn the days of the week. And she's like, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? She was 3. So, and I don't even know how you know that. We never worked on that. And so another, besides you already knowing many things that I never could figure out how she knew it, was she had an overwhelming confidence. And I have to remind you, the child was 3. But she either thought she knew everything, or she could learn it almost instantaneously, which in our experience, she didn't think so. She wasn't making that up. It was actually true. So that's what I would be looking for. If you are constantly experiencing, I have no idea how or why this child knows this, or they have an aura of,
I know everything.
I know everything. And when you try to teach them they don't know everything, it's hard to do that, because pretty much they do. So, yeah.
So, that's hard to deal with because that's not what you're expecting in a young child, in a kid. So you like to say, remember that gifted kids are kids. And what do you mean by that?
So parents will forget that, and the child is pretty sure that's not true. But gifted,
I definitely was sure that was not true.
the gifted children are children, and there's more to life than academics. So their bodies need to grow up, their emotional maturity needs to develop, their relational interactions need to develop. So they need a childhood. And parents, it's your job to make sure that they do not rush through their own childhood. So, and that's hard to do because they are bent on rushing through their childhood.
One parent asked, how do I give my kid enough info? How do I get to a point where it's like, okay, that's enough, go play, I've got stuff to do, when you have these kids that are just like, I want to learn everything.
Yeah, so well, in all parenting situations, you're the parent and you direct their day. Mm-hmm. So you're making up their schedule, and so playtime is playtime, and that's as important as reading time or schoolwork time. But also remember that these gifted children, boredom is like death.
Yes, it is. 100%.
So keep them busy, but busy doesn't have to be academics. It can be chores. It can be, depending on their age, it might be babysitting. It can be other activities. It can be hobbies. It could be jewelry making. It could be many, many different things. It doesn't always have to be academics. And so keep them busy, but also don't let them determine their day. You're mom, and you guide them through their day. And they might complain a little bit more about playtime than you think is reasonable, but make them play.
And yeah, looking back, I think I was definitely your kid with the most hobbies.
Yes.
And with the most electives and just added on schoolwork. I was probably the only one who did Latin.
Yep.
I was about the only one that played an instrument like consistently for many, many years, even though I didn't like music. I wasn't all that interested in it, but it was like something to do. And so I had more electives into my schedule than a lot of the other kids, just because like, yeah, I can't be bored. To this day, everyone who knows me knows that boring is about the worst word that I could possibly use. If something's boring, that's the most cutting insult that I could give. How can you help a gifted child with friendships and relationships? And someone asked about, especially when they could be bored by their peers, like people their same age and level. So lots of gifted kids do struggle with relationships and people, and what can you do as a parent to help build these relational skills?
Help them understand the concept of human frailty. So human frailty comes in many sizes and shapes, but for the gifted child, mostly what they're coming against is the slowness, the mental slowness that is in either their peers or their parents or others. And they don't know how to handle that. They need to develop grace and an acceptance and an awareness of who they are and who other people are, and how to just tolerate that slowness in other people. And emphasize that it's okay to be smart. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But it is not okay to be unkind. It is not okay to not care about others. So they might not intuitively sense the value for that, but you as a parent can. That's one of the things that as they are growing, they need to emotionally mature in their care and concern about others.
I think that was something that was a really big part of the way you raised me. I think that was many conversations in knowing, you got to care for other people, and people are not how smart they are, how quick they are, like respecting others, being kind to others, seeing what you can do to help others. You use your gifts for good and not to put other people down and stamp on them, kind of thing. So you guys all know me as a grown-up, thankfully. I have, I think your lessons have matured me a lot, have been very helpful. I think one of the big things you see in a lot of literature and movies about very gifted and very intelligent people is that they are often not very nice, and not very nice to other people. So that is something to be aware of, is it might require some extra work to be nice, to be patient, just because it can be very frustrating when your mind is moving so fast to live at the speed, to not take words out of people's mouths, to slow down enough to listen and care about them. But it can be done, because God made these other people. They are precious. People are one of my top number one values. I cherish people. I seek to serve them. But that was definitely more of a taught skill rather than all the other things I learned without her teaching me. There was actually a book, a Sunlight book called Carry On, Mr. Bowditch, that you read a scene from it, and it really clicked for you. Like, this is what Rachel needs to learn. Nathaniel Bowditch was a genius who invented basically this whole system of navigation for ships back before GPS and all of that. So I'm going to read you a little scene from that book, in which a friend of Nathaniel Bowditch is like explaining to him what it is like to experience him as a normal person who's trying to be a friend with him. "I'm just like a chair you stumble over in the dark," Elizabeth said. "It isn't the chair's fault, but you kick it anyhow." Nat Bowditch blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Your brain, it's too fast, so you stumble on other people's dumbness, and you want to kick something when you do." Nat felt his face get hot. "But I shouldn't?" Elizabeth agreed. "No, you shouldn't, because even if people are dumb, they aren't chairs, are they? They have feelings." So that was something that you really used as a teaching point for me at a very young age, and then use that phrase, don't kick the chair in the dark. It can't help that it's a chair. You can't help that you're you, but you can help how you respond.
Right. So the phrase, "don't kick the chair."
So having a clue phrase like that was definitely very helpful.
Yeah. Reward acts of love, reward acts of service, talk about, "I appreciated how patient you were with your little sister. I appreciated your help with dinner." Acknowledge those more than your amazement at, "Well, you learned that very, very well," or "you got a very high score." That will come whether you acknowledge it or not. It just will be there. But really focus on the character of people are valuable.
Yeah, our society, I think, is very, very naturally rewards academic gifting, just the way our society is arranged, whereas love and kindness and humility and consideration for others are not so naturally rewarded, but yet they're probably more important for a truly successful life. So your kids who naturally grasp academics, they're going to get those accolades and awards anyways. So you as the parent can guide and encourage these other characteristics that are relational. How do you actually nurture the academic gifts? Several moms asked what to do, especially with very young gifted children, or what to teach them when they already know all the things that a 3-year-old or 4-year-old or 5-year-old should know.
Okay. I would say go broad instead of go higher. So foreign language, always a good choice. Music, that's another. Hobbies and just work skills. Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, she can do roofing and siding.
Mm-hmm. Vinyl siding, I'm really good at calculating all the angles for vinyl siding, knowing how much space you need between the nails and the wall and
yeah, so seriously, keep them busy, but it doesn't always have to be, okay, I'm skipping you to the next grade, I'm skipping you to the next grade. Sometimes that's an appropriate response. Mm-hmm. But life has many skills necessary, and you have to wait for their bodies and their other developmental skills to keep pace with their academics. So I would say try going broad before you go up. You will have to go up as well. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like you can keep them back, mm-hmm. but make sure that you're slowing it down as much as you can.
Yeah, like I guess just as an kind of example of this, I graduated high school at 16, which is slightly on the young side, but not much on the young side. You hear a lot of times of gifted kids graduating high school at 14 or 12 and going on to college. I probably could have done college level work at those younger ages, but we didn't choose that path because there wasn't much point. When you can choose to go broad like that, I don't have a specific focus kind of in my genius. I'm more of just generally I can learn everything. Some people have that where it's like one kind of really focused direction. So for us and for what we value, it actually made a lot more sense. Don't rush through life. Don't rush through childhood. Give it time for the character to develop, for the emotions to develop, the person to develop, rather than rushing on to the next thing constantly in academics. And how does it feel as a parent when you're homeschooling and raising a gifted child? How does that feel for your own kind of ego?
So be prepared to, I think all parents are prepared for that. They know it happens at teenagerhood, that your kids start thinking parents are dumb. Like, we're all prepared for that. We watch the movies. We were teenagers ourselves. We know this happens. You're just not expecting it at 5. So I was reading Little Women to Rachel once. I think she was 5.
Mm-hmm.
And she was reading over my shoulder like she always did because I didn't read fast enough for her. And several times during reading, she was correcting my pronunciation. And after a while, this just was like...
Or I was asking you, and I remember doing this, I remember asking you, like, can you turn the page? Because I'm already finished. I know you're still reading, because, reading out loud is slow. Can you just turn the page so I can read the next page already?
And then I just handed her the book. Like, it's like, okay, you have to recognize, my role in reading to her is done. Mm-hmm. But she was at 5. And it's like, here's the book, child. Mm-hmm. But that's a little hard on the parental ego, and it's okay. It is so okay for your kids to be smarter than you, to be faster than you, and those things. But sometimes it is a blow at first. It's like, I was expecting that maybe a little later on, but okay, it happened at 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand, and I always say to you guys who are watching my channel who are talking about having gifted kids, having been one and having seen what kind of I put my mom through, especially from the lens of adulthood and now being a mom myself, like I have a lot of compassion for you. So just know that. So what do you do if you notice that your gifted child is kind of pretending to be not as smart as they are, or kind of hiding their giftedness?
Okay, I would say probably that's happening because they've noticed that people somehow got offended at them being so smart, or somehow that's not helping their relationships, and so they're trying to compensate for it. I would say it's okay. Help them a little bit on hiding or toning down how smart they are, because it really doesn't help their relational their relationships with their peers for the most part. So we parents can brag sometimes a little too much about our kids and our kids' abilities, and so if you see them start to be a little uncomfortable with themselves and what they can do, it's okay. When they don't join that math competition, be okay with it. They don't need another medal. When they don't raise their hands in class when you know obviously you know the answer to that. Just be aware that it is difficult for them in their relationships with their peers, and also sometimes parents can make it difficult because we like to brag about the abilities of our children. So I would say it's okay. Don't be too concerned. When they become more comfortable with who they are and their abilities, and when they become better at relationships, actually, when they are nicer people, then they'll be more comfortable with their giftedness.
I think this is something that you definitely saw come into play with me, like probably like when you're a little kid, then you just like, isn't it so cool? I know everything. And then when you're a teenager and in college, you start to really have more awareness of other people, and you start to realize that, oh, you can be a little bit annoying and you can be a little bit of a smart aleck. Or like in college, I had several experiences where like people who hadn't talked to me for an entire semester would email me the night before final exams and ask me for my study guide or my class notes, because they just knew I was a really good student and I had everything all organized nicely, and they wouldn't talk to me the whole entire time, but they would ask me for my work. So I kind of quickly realized people don't necessarily like super smart people, but they will use them. And I had, experiences in class where my professors would say, can anyone but Rachel answer the question? And then all of my classmates would say, just let Rachel answer the question, she knows and we don't. So I didn't 100% hide it, clearly, but I did kind of do some of the, everyone's super stressed about tests, so you kind of be like, oh yeah, I have to study, and I have so much homework to do, which I never had to do any homework because it was like done so fast, and I never had to study really because I knew it. Yes, I definitely have experienced this, and also kind of something that will be probably really important for your gifted children as they grow. The people that have been most precious to me in my life have been the people that like understand the way my brain works and still like me anyways. And I don't have to like just talk like a normal person. So actually my husband is one of those people, and my mom knew he was someone to be suspicious of from the get-go, because he made it clear, like, he knew I was different.
So they were at a dinner, and somebody who was talking at the dinner said, I'm not the speaker. Yeah, I'm not probably the smartest person in the room. And Angel leaned over to Rachel and said, you're probably thinking, I am the smartest person in this room.
And that's what I was thinking.
And just that he knew that. I was like, when she was telling me the story of the funny thing her friend said, that was a very interesting friend, because it's very perceptive that he would have even known that about her, because at that point in life she really was hiding who she was. So it's like, I don't know how he knew that about her, but
so watch out for those people who tend to get your gifted child and kind of understand them and accept them. They're someones to watch out for. So
they'll become your son-in-law.
Yeah, be aware. They also ask for book suggestions. Viewer asked for book suggestions for gifted kids to help them kind of accept their differences, accept the way that they think. I think every kid appreciates, we talk about mirrors and windows into a different world, and also books that are mirrors where they can kind of see themselves and see their own experience. For me, I think I'm gonna ask for people in the comments if you guys have any good book suggestions. Please leave them. I feel like I have not found a lot, especially of child-friendly characters in books. More in the adult side, I've seen more characters I relate to, but Sherlock Holmes, and I feel bad admitting this because he's pretty much a sociopath. Sherlock Holmes has been one of the most relatable characters I have ever known in fiction. So that tells you a lot about me right there, but I also found the whole Sherlock Holmes story to be very encouraging, because Sherlock Holmes finds a friend and he finds someone that he loves and who loves him very, very well and can go on many adventures together. So Sherlock Holmes was a very relatable character for me, someone that I've loved, although I do realize he's not supposed to be a lovable character. I do realize that, but one of the most relatable characters I have ever seen. So for the gifted child that's kind of has my angle, I recommend Sherlock Holmes.
Later.
They're not for the 5 and 6, 7-year-old. How do you manage the emotions and relationship if you have a gifted child who's younger than a smart, hardworking older sibling, and the younger sibling starts to overtake the older sibling?
Okay, that is super common, by the way, and I think with all children, people should sit their kids down and explain, you will not always be children. At some point in life, you're going to be adult siblings. Adult siblings interact in a different way than they did when they were kids. And so the older one is not always smarter, they're not always faster, they're not always bigger. And so the only thing that makes those big differences in childhood is age. It is not innate ability. So innate abilities are not a birth order thing. So, but kids don't understand that, because when they were born and they're this big, their big sister was this big. So, and the big sister doesn't know this either, because they're not all the way grown up. So you're going to have to explain kind of this idea to kids that someday you'll be adults. And the younger sibling might be richer, they might be smarter, they might go on longer vacations, they might have bigger houses. Like, birth order doesn't mean you were born first, so you will be taller, you will be smarter, you will be faster. That's not what birth order means. So to change the paradigm in your children's minds about, if someone younger than me can do more than I can in an area, then wrong. Either, that's wrong, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with them, they're cheating, or something like that. So one, explain life to them in that area. Then two, teach this. Celebrate success in all of its forms. Even if someone younger wins the game, you say, congratulations, good job. And if someone younger can run faster than you, congratulations, good job. And if someone younger can do their times tables before you can, congratulations, good job. The Bible teaches a concept called rejoice with those who rejoice. And it also says, do not covet. So I think we should put these two ideas together. Moms sometimes show a lot of compassion for jealousy and coveting, and they shouldn't. So I would say, as a mom, zero compassion for this struggle. So just like you're not compassionate when your child steals something, and you're not compassionate when they lie, do not be compassionate when they covet the gifts and skills of their siblings. So you just say, that's wrong. It is, like, we all struggle with temptations. We might do bad things from time to time, but we don't try to pretend that stealing is right just because we struggle with stealing, or lying is right. So jealousy, coveting, envy between siblings is wrong, and just treat it like that. Like, yeah, you're struggling with that temptation to be envious of your little sibling who is, we had one, it wasn't this child, but we had a younger child who learned to sing their ABCs before their older sibling, or learned to swim before the older sibling learned to swim. So they were overtaking their older sibling over in skills. That particular older sibling had zero problem with it.
Just her personality.
Her personality is very like, yay, I'm so proud of you. I mean, she was that. I didn't have to teach her that. She's that naturally. But when you see that struggle, that can steal the joy out of a home super quickly. And then moms sometimes come in and make it worse, because you're trying to make it life fair for your kids. Your kids are different. They will develop at different speeds. Do not keep a younger child down because of something an older child can't do, and don't cater to an older child who's kind of feeling bad about the skills of their younger sibling. Just go ahead and say, yeah, no, I understand that's a problem for you, but just like we don't steal and we don't lie, we don't covet. It's just something we don't do.
Yeah, I think for you, the sibling relationship was always something that you talked to us very intentionally about, and you always talked about the idea, you guys are all different, but you guys are siblings. You will have each other forever. You are going to treasure each other. You are going to treasure each other. Yes. Even though some days you might not believe me, you are going to treasure each other. You are going to treat each other with respect all the time. And there was also, I think, understanding. We all understood that we were different in different ways. I mean, if I ever in my smart aleck youth was trying to be like, hey, that was so easy for me, why is it so hard for you? My siblings would have shut me down immediately with, you're Rachel, okay, shut up. Which, maybe that is maybe, slightly rude. Don't exactly recommend that kind of answer. But there, we didn't tolerate actual competition or trying to pit one another against each other in our family. That was a priority for you, was celebrating all of our successes, whether it's Rachel reading this, long book, having this academic accomplishment, and someone else putting much more effort into doing something smaller, like smaller academically, but they put in way more effort. That I recognize, and I have recognized from a young age, that is a huge accomplishment, to actually put the effort in. So, sibling relationships are to be valued and treasured, and we got to teach our kids that. How do you motivate a strong-willed, gifted child in an area that does not interest them?
Okay. Motivation in children is such a huge topic, and it's not really specialized to the gifted child. So I think we need another interview.
Motivation, a separate video, motivation on things that don't interest your children.
That's a child development that is not unique to gifted children. So I would,
Do you have any advice for handling the big emotions of a gifted child? And I will say, us gifted individuals are pretty famous for having a very wide range of emotional ability. We feel everything very intensely. That was definitely true for me, is definitely true for me. Yes.
So I would say, as a parent, you have a lifetime of perspective behind you. So use that. Don't be pulled into their dramas. So as a child thinks everything is overwhelmingly important and crushingly, sad just okay, I hear you. I hear that's sad, and I hear you're struggling with that, and the sun comes up tomorrow. And give them some perspective in life. That's what they're really missing, is they don't really know that it is going to be okay. They don't really know the rest of the story. And it's like, as a parent, you've already been there. You've already done that. So give them some calm assurance of, okay, that seems pretty sad, and God will be with you, and the sun comes up tomorrow. And what I mean by don't be pulled into it is they are so convincingly dramatic
so verbal.
You almost think, oh, maybe the world is coming to an end or something. And so you really have to take a step back and evaluate the situation and say, well, I'm pretty sure this is fine. And just be their matter-of-fact voice that speaks into their different dramas. Say, this will be okay. You'll get through this. And they need that.
So seek to be the constancy that they can kind of hold on to in the midst of the highs and the lows. You've definitely been that for me, and I will say I don't think the big emotions totally go away into adulthood. But you gain some perspective, but I'm still the type of person that I need to feel. Like, I don't try to not feel the things, but I do know it doesn't last forever now. Several parents said that they have a gifted child who's just used to learning everything instantly, or already knowing what they're supposed to learn. So when this child bumps into a concept that will take some work to learn, there are either meltdowns, or they feel so terrible because, like, why is this hard? Or there's refusals, plain refusals to do the work. So they don't want to put in effort to learn because they're not accustomed to it. It's not normal for them. So what can a parent do?
Okay. And here I would also say meltdowns are a child developmental issue. It's not unique to the gifted child, though it might be, let's say, worse in the gifted child. So for all children, develop a family culture of resilience. So there are many ways to work towards resilience, but one is just your go-to statements. Like, I can do hard things. I can do things more than once. I can try. I can fail, and I can do it again. Those kind of
gifted people do have really gut aversions to some of those things. I can fail. What? I can try again. No.
Yeah. So these these things need to be regularly just part of the family culture. And resilience is something that's built only, like you can't build it when everything works. Everything working and getting everything right doesn't build resilience. So make sure you build into their lives some opportunities to fail. And that's a little bit difficult because they're so good at everything. But when you see them start to struggle, just be, yes, this is great. This is going to teach you resilience. Resilience is awesome. And be enthusiastic about things that take effort and take time, and help them. Usually they have to notice it in other people. Look how hard your sister's trying. Look how much effort your brother put into something. And then help them start to value resilience, help them start to value effort and doing something more than once, because that's so unusual for them. But it's good to learn.
Yeah, there's so much to be learned through having that experience of actually working hard to learn something and achieve something. And the normal kid might get it through like learning how to read. They experience that not knowing something and then going through the process and working on it for weeks or months to learn how to read. And that doesn't happen for the gifted child, because you teach them the alphabet and then they know how to read.
Right. Like, there was some jump, but we're not sure how that happened. Another thing that's really helpful is role play. You can only do role play in times of non-conflict, so not when the child is having a meltdown and not when they're struggling with something, but just totally like in random peaceful times. Role play someone. Okay, I usually do it with a little doll. This little doll's struggling to learn something, and they're gonna start throwing things and freaking out and crying and giving up, and then say to the kid, especially your verbal genius, coach this child. Tell them what they should be doing. They already know. So, this little child should be trying again. Oh, don't give up, and they'll be great. So when they have to coach somebody else through it, they're actually teaching themselves.
Did you ever do co-ops, or did you have a hard time doing co-ops because the academics typically don't accommodate an advanced learner?
Yeah. I didn't really do co-ops, and I can see how co-ops would be very difficult with a gifted learner. If I took my gifted learner to a co-op, I can imagine I would assign them to wash the cups, to teach the younger kids, do something so that they weren't annoyed to death over I wasn't actually learning anything, or everything they said in the story I already knew. So if you want to not annoy your gifted learner, give them something else to do when they need to be with other people in a learning environment.
Yeah, I mean, we were a part of like Sunday school classes, youth group, and so on. And you always talked about, it's like, don't go there and think that you're here to learn necessarily. That's not the purpose of being there. You're there to serve. So whatever group things we were involved in, Mom was always, keep your eyes open for opportunities to serve. Can you wash the dishes? Can you talk to someone who's new? Can you help the teacher pack up? Like, what can you do? Keep your eyes open to think, what can you do to serve? Not like, oh, I'm coming here because I really need to learn. No, I'm coming here to build relationships, to build my heart for other people, and, to be a part of the community. Like, we're supposed to be living in community and serving other people, and we can't do that if we're only considering ourselves and like, what do I need to learn? Is this lesson actually interesting to me? And all of that. Did you ever get accused of pushing your gifted learner too much?
Not really, and as I thought about that, there wasn't really social media so much back then, and I don't know, maybe we just as moms didn't talk about so much of like what level a kid was at, or so I think a lot of people did not know.
So do you have any suggestions on finding curriculum for young advanced learners, especially for when the motor skills haven't caught up with the mental skills yet? Because that can make it hard to use a lot of curriculums that expect a lot of writing.
Okay, so I'm going to address the writing part of that first, because we did not experience it with Rachel. Because actually, for whatever reason, she was very dexterous, even as a very young child. So the writing, she was able to write and answer.
Basically when I could read.
Right, so that was not an issue. Our daughter Sarah was a very small, physically small child and really struggled with the holding a pencil, writing, but her brain far exceeded her ability to write. And so I wrote down many answers for her, because it's like she would have been totally bored had we waited until she caught up with her writing skills. So we, just like many subjects, we let her go ahead in English, math, and other things. And it's like, if the writing was holding her back, I would just write it. We did penmanship separately. So she did study her penmanship. We did work on that. It's not like we didn't work on it.
On the fine motor skills, but at a separate level.
At a separate level. So she was doing like pre-K, kindergarten writing, and like third grade work. So to me, that's totally fine. As far as curriculum, I think I really like whole book curriculums like Sunlight or something like that for the advanced learner, because reading a book, you can actually learn a little bit, or you can read and learn a lot from the same book. So I think whole books really give your advanced learner the opportunity
to learn at their pace,
at
their level of learning. You could read a book and you could be able to say the whole thing, but pretty much page by page, and write summaries of it. And you did actually have experiences where you basically ran out of curriculum.
Yes, multiple times.
Multiple times in the early years. You ran out of what you'd bought for the year. And I remember quite a bit of what I did in the early years. Like, I wasn't using a language arts curriculum. I was reading books, and then I was writing summaries of the books. That's like what I was doing at 7.
Right.
7 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, kind of those early years.
In the day when we didn't know, no, you should buy this child 2 or 3 curriculums for a year of different varieties, and like she eats them. I would run out in less than half of a school year, and budgeting was actually an issue at that time. So it's like, well, what do you do? And it's like, well, we had a library, and I would get a stack of books, and it's like, you will summarize these books, and then the next week you will summarize these books.
And I loved it.
Yeah, it was like, this is called homeschooling until we get to the next year.
So sometimes you gotta think a little bit outside the box, and I totally recommend like doing 6 months of read books and summarize them. But I was so happy with it. I was so happy. I mean, reading and writing are my favorite things to do. So sometimes you can kind of do these outside the box things to meet their needs, and that was able to meet my needs of, you're not going too fast, but you're doing what they can do and really defining those skills. And guess what? I'm very good at summarizing. I'm like, summary just makes sense to me. I don't understand why so many kids struggle with it. So I guess we kind of talked about that. Do you have curriculum recommendations? Like, so if an LA curriculum for the kindergarten and first grade is focused on learning to read and phonics and all that, what do you do when you have a kid who already knows how to read and read with comprehension?
And you can go 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. You can go up, but always remember, is there something you're missing? Because with these kids, you'll have the opportunity to go broad. So maybe you want to do more geography. Maybe you want to do more history. Maybe you want to do more science. Maybe you want to throw in a few more electives or something else. But it's totally okay. It's like, you're supposed to be in 1st grade, but their ability is 3rd grade. Well, go with 3rd grade. You're teaching a child, not a curriculum.
Would you do anything differently if you were homeschooling me through early elementary again?
Yes. I think I was just unaware of the power of foreign languages. So had I to do it over again, I don't speak other languages, but I realize now that's not a problem. It's really not a problem to teach a foreign language when you don't know it. I didn't know that then. I would have more pushed the foreign languages. She did do Spanish a little bit, and she did Latin, but she could have definitely handled more. So I think that would be...
Yeah, I mean, none of us knew how big of a part language would play in my life, and I think it's kind of retrospective. We know I fell in love with learning languages and speaking languages, having a multilingual family now. I would of course like to go back and start mastering languages earlier when it's an easy time to learn language, but that definitely consider foreign language for your young gifted learner, because a lot of people don't think about putting that into the routine with a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
Or they're limited by their own language abilities, and that I think was my big hang up, was it's like, how do you, I understand how you teach some subjects without really understanding a lot about it, but how do you teach a foreign language when I don't know any Chinese? How would I do that?
And it's so much easier today than it would have been back in the 90s. If you were doing it now, you have the internet. You did not have the internet back then.
Now it seems like a piece of cake.
Yeah, compared to 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago. Well, thank you so much. That was, I think, a very rich interview. It was probably a little bit on the longer side of a video, but I know that there are not a whole lot of videos on this topic, and you guys had so many questions, so I definitely wanted to make sure that we addressed them. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we will try to answer them. I hope that you like this video, that you stick around, click subscribe and like on this video, and watch more adventures from our homeschooling family, and we'll see you next time. Bye!